want to make sure we reach all of you. Pardon me? Can I hear me? I'm inside my own head, so yes. Oh, we're live though, so that's fantastic.
Oh, wow.
We're gonna start right away. Hello, everyone, and welcome to SaksWorks. We're so excited to have Chloé Brinklow with us today to talk about the influencer economy. Before we begin, just want to say a few words about SaksWorks. Welcome. Hope you're enjoying this leafy paradise, an oasis in Brookfield Place and other locations. Saks flagship opening in Greenwich soon, Manhasset, and beyond. SaksWorks is a new way of thinking about how we spend our time, how we want to live our lives, looking after our needs, thinking about what we want to do, how we want to do it, and prioritizing self-care and our goals and ambitions and community. So we urge you to come take a tour of the space after, just say hello. Please go to our website, check us out, and come in for a complimentary day pass and come enjoy SaksWorks. But for now, we're going to have some of our special SaksWorks programming. I'm Rachel Sklar, VP of Programming and Content here at SaksWorks, and I'm so excited to present my friend and a absolute dynamite speaker and expert, Chloé Brinklow, who is the creative director and founder of Tomboy Beauty and Tomboy Creative. She is a multi-hyphenate. What did you call it? You call it a slashy, right?
A slashy.
A slashy. She's slashy. She is a writer, editor, founder, talent manager, creative director, and an ace baker of Elsa cakes if you happen to have a child with a birthday party, which I did. Not sure that that's available for you, but it might be a premium client service. But in any case, welcome, Chloé. Let us talk about the influencer economy, because we all know influencers, they walk among us, they may be us, depending on, we all influence somebody, somehow. But really the economy element of it. How do influencers make money? Who is paying them, and how is it making them money? And what does this say about the culture overall? And also, can we all become an influencer right now and get a deal with Chanel? Chanel call me. Chanel is unlikely to call me, but
Armani did.
Armani did, and that is actually how very good segue. That's how I know Chloé. We met on Armani campaign. I was a real person selected for it amongst, real influencers.
She's being very humble. The campaign was C-Circle. It was around Giorgio Armani's fragrance. And Mr. Armani himself picked 5 inspiring women from around the globe, and Rachel happened to be one of them. Due to her work creating a women's network and advocating for women and human rights and all of the things.
I'm going to get back to talking about Chloé, but thank you. So we met on this campaign and became fast friends. Why don't we talk a little bit about how you came to New York at all in the first place? You may be able to tell that Chloé has an accent. She's from Australia. And she was working as a manager with one of her clients who was one of the other women involved in the campaign. So you can take it from here.
So the story about moving to New York involves lost travel documents and being a little bit stuck here for longer than expected. But how I actually got into working in the talent management and influencer space I started out in publishing. I was the beauty editor at InStyle magazine in Australia. And I sort of got to experience influencers in real time coming into this space. Back then we called them bloggers. And I sort of noticed that they had more of an audience at the magazines that I was working for, and creating more interesting content and stories. So I was very, very curious about it. And one of them just happened to be my best friend's now wife, girlfriend at the time. And yeah, we ended up linking up after me doing several years in publishing and working at a full service agency. And yeah, that's kind of how I got into it.
Can I ask you a little bit about that story? So the friend is Nicole Warren, formerly Gary Pepper Girl. I don't know if she uses that anymore, but she's like a high-level fashion influencer. And this, I think that like Nicole's story and your story is so fantastic because it's like it is the prototypical story of how you just start something and work your way up. I don't believe Nicole or you had sort of previous fashion connections. No, weren't on speed dial with Giorgio.
Absolutely not. So Nicole is completely a pioneer in this space. She started a vintage eBay clothing store, and at the same time, on the same day, launched some social media accounts. Instagram wasn't around then, so it was Facebook and Twitter. And she was creating a brand before that was a thing, to create a personal brand, and her audience grew really quickly because she was doing something different that no one else had done yet.
And location?
We are from a small town on the east coast of Australia called North of Oka. One of my best friends is also in the audience who is from there, and there must be something in the water, because all of us, there are so many of us from this tiny town that work in creative, that work in fashion, and have kind of ended up living in New York. Like Ryan is an executive producer at an amazing agency and produces Super Bowl commercials. And we all come from a really small one road in, one road out surf town.
Wow. So you and Nicole start working together.
Yeah.
How did you jump from being in editorial, which was was certainly the pinnacle of working in fashion at that time, to going to work with Nicole?
So there was a few steps in between. I'm going to say leaving editorial was absolutely financially motivated, and I'm not ashamed to say that. I think
never be ashamed to say that, or do that, frankly.
Yeah, we should be empowered and not struggling. Struggling artists are a thing of the past. It's not the cool thing to do anymore. So I was poached from InStyle magazine to go work at a female-founded full-service media agency that sort of worked across publicity, content, digital communication, media buy, all the things. And during my time there, we launched the first ever influencer agency in Australia. And it launched with two of the globe's biggest beauty YouTubers. And I was actually their publicist. So while I was working there, and Nicole had sort of decided that she wanted to leave her traditional agency, we had a conversation and I jumped ship, and that's basically how it happened. And the reason why Nicole wanted to leave her traditional agency was she wanted more of a boutique offering. Those agencies at the time were very much the sort of model or acting booking agents, and they didn't really have the know-how into how to actually build a brand and businesses in the way that Nicole was interested in doing it.
So can you tell me about when it hit an inflection point? I'm sure that there are many inflection points. One that I can think of is before I knew any of you, which was the Lucky cover with Nicole and Zenita Whittington, and I can't remember the third person because...
It was Chiara Ferranggi.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that. Were you working with Zenita at the time?
I wasn't working with Zenita at the time. She's now on my roster of talent. She's also incredible in the sense that all the talent I work with don't just have social media as their business. One of my favorite ways of saying this is don't build your empire on rented land. When I hear that people want to be influencers or social media stars, it can't be your whole business. It's too volatile. It can't be your only revenue stream. It needs to be your tool to perpetuate the other things that you care about. So, for example, Zenita has a creative studio and a photo studio. It used to be in Chelsea, New York. She's now back in Melbourne, Australia, doing the same thing. Nicole is a digital consultant for some of the biggest brands in the world. She's the face of many brands. She heads up a not-for-profit called Adopt Change because she's an adoptee, and she's really passionate about advocating for that. Another talent, Montana Loa, is an environmental engineer, and she has a natural beauty brand and a not-for-profit called Murals for Change. They use their social media as a tool to promote and build these other businesses, and I think that is sort of the only way that we should be thinking about influence.
So at the time that this Lucky cover came out, like this was, we were still calling everybody bloggers. Mm-hmm. People were not individually starting Substacks. It was just like the influencer economy was in its very nascent stage. I'm pretty sure Keeping Up with the Kardashians was probably on TV, but it was on E and like seen as a niche thing and not
totally
as an Audrey 2 about to swallow the world whole. Any musical theater people here? Sometimes I see these plants and I can't help thinking of Audrey too, but that is another thing entirely not part of the SaksWorks marketing plan at all. Please continue.
So I think bloggers and influencers were sort of looked down upon, and it was because of the threat, I think, to publishing. Budgets started being rediverted. A good example of why that happened is when I was working at InStyle magazine, I begged my editor to interview Nicole and write the first article that was ever written about her and the first interview. And they were like, no, we're a celebrity magazine, we don't do that, blah, blah, blah. And I begged and begged and begged, they let me do it. And for the next 2.5 years that I was at InStyle magazine, that article remained in the top 10 hits on the website.
So the shift is happening, and we meet, which obviously was a huge inflection point. I'm just kidding, but you moved here. But the result of that Armani campaign was you came to New York for what you thought would be a few
6
weeks.
days.
Okay, you feel free to tell this story.
I lost my passport the day I arrived. It takes 10 days to get an emergency passport. So in that time, I obviously had to extend to wait to get a new passport, and just a lot of opportunities came our way pertaining to Nicole's business. At the time, I was publishing a magazine called Tomboy Beauty, and I had really incredible opportunities to feature amazing women and work with incredible collaborators. And then one of my friends asked me to look at apartments with her, and she couldn't afford a 2-bedroom by herself, and said, would you ever move? And I said, yes.
And so this is influence in action. Chloé had recently befriended a single mom that she had just met on her most recent assignment, and she noticed on that single mom's my Instagram stories that I lived in Stuytown and how lovely it seemed, and when the list of apartments for her and Zenita came up and they saw Stuytown, I was like, why don't we go to Stuytown? Why don't we check it out?
And Rachel actually came through our walkthrough. So Rachel, the moral of this story is you are an influencer.
But anybody is an influencer, really.
Absolutely.
I mean, and influence is wherever people are spending their time. And so one of the, I mean, that I was saying that kind of joking around, but there's some color. But the truth of it is that if you want to have influence, you have to go where people live. And so people do live in their phones, and where are they spending their time, and what are they paying attention to? And so you came here, and let's continue with your life story.
I came here at the time I was only working with Nicole in the talent arm of my business. It's now been extended to 5 talent that I'm incredibly proud to work with. And I also have a creative studio. I consult for brands. I don't know. What do you want to know?
I want to know all of this, because this is the economy, right? So so this is where, because where is the I guess, where are the profits being made? Where is the opportunity? Part of being able to succeed in an ever-shifting business, which you said it's ever-shifting, so it's to be able to see where things are going. So, because ultimately it is, and we'll drill down in this in a little bit, but really just questions about why is it worth it to these companies to work with influencers, and what are they providing, and what are their managers providing?
I would say the reason, I keep going back to publishing references because that's just my background. It has a lot to do with the amount of people that these influencers can reach. So magazines, may, in the Australian market at least, would have 60,000 circulation a month, whereas these influencers have 1.9 million followers. In saying that, it's not just about your following, it's about the type of audience you have, and it's about the message that you're putting out and how you're putting it out there and who you're putting it out there to. So when I say what is the message, when I work with influencers as a manager, we kind of do a brand strategy, a personal brand strategy. We break down the channels and the pillars of the business into, well, what do you stand for? It may be that you have a sustainability pillar and you're going to talk about that. You might have a fashion pillar, you might have a lifestyle pillar, you might have a pillar that is about New York. And essentially these talent are brands in themselves.
I mean, you talked about sustainability. How important is it right now, particularly in this moment? I mean, hopefully post-pandemic, but realistically, in like late-stage pandemic, we're in a time of awareness about world issues. Like, how important is it for there to be like a social goodness plank for influencers, or is that wishful thinking that's important to the business side?
I think it's really important. I mean, only the influencer or the brand can decide for themselves what is important to them. It may be sustainability, it might be social justice, but yes, I think right now conscious consuming is really important.
Is that the sort of thing that is there a pivot economically towards that? Are we seeing that brands are trying to work with people who are leaders in that space?
Absolutely. So I'll use Montana Loa, who is one of the talent that I work with, as an example. As I said, she's an environmental engineer. She lives an almost zero waste lifestyle, and she uses her channels to show people how to live a sustainable life. One of the things that she does is the elimination communication method with her daughter, so they don't use diapers. And a lot of...
How old is this daughter?
2.
Okay.
And they've been doing it since she was 3 days old. It's kind of wild. We can link it somewhere.
I have different type of communication with my child. But, yeah. All right. And then continue.
But there are brands, like big brands, that are creating sustainability arms of their business. If it's a fashion brand, she just worked with H&M, for example, which...
I mean, it's like a tad ironic.
Right? It's a big fast fashion brand. She worked with them on their sustainability range, which I believe was all recycled fabrics and all of the things, and she got completely dragged for it by her followers. They were all saying, it's greenwashing, this is terrible, we can't believe that you're doing this, you're a sustainability advocate. And her response to that was, progress is better than perfection. And if a big brand like this is starting to work in this space, then I'm going to talk about it, because it's another option for people that are going to shop at H&M anyway. Whether you agree with that or not, that was her take. And I do think progress is better than perfection.
I mean, both would be nice.
Well, I mean, progress is more achievable than perfection right now.
That's a good way of putting it. One of the things that when we talked prior to this, you talked a lot about, are you ready to do the hard work, right? Talk a little bit about what it takes, what kind of commitment it takes, and if it's possible to really have a job as an influencer on the side. We see sort of like the big stories, like I kept on being served this ad for CNBC about like some guy who went all in on YouTube during the pandemic. But the reality of it is that it takes a lot of work, and you might go viral or you might build up slowly. Like what do you see what common traits do you see across influencers who are making it happen and able to make a living from this? Even if it's not a huge living, like the CNBC guy.
I mean, it's absolutely a full-time job. You have to be a content creator, a strategist, a marketer, probably doing your accounting and bookkeeping and all your admin as well. I think in the beginning it was very much about being a pioneer and being the first sort of to it and creating the formula. A lot of people follow that formula, but I think people that are coming up now, like you say, this YouTube guy, in a moment of time when a lot of people were at home, he happened to offer something that no one else was.
And this is, we did not talk about this, but I'm actually curious. Like, do you pay attention to the kids space? No, because this is the thing. My child goes on YouTube, and her favorite thing now is Trinity and Beyond. These 2 kids and their parents. They have like a studio, and they use their whole house. It's clearly their full-time job, and they've got like 6 million subscribers. Every video is like, hit that subscribe button, like everything, or whatever. And they're these 5-year-old kids. I'm curious if like if you're looking at other segments and if you're learning from other segments, because frankly, I definitely pick things up from watching Trinity and Beyond.
I can honestly say I've not dove into the kid market as yet, but I feel
welcome anytime.
I would love to see some recommendations for research points on that. I feel like I'm evolving and growing with the diversifying the roster of talent that I have. Like I only worked with fashion and beauty girls before. Now I have Montana, who is a sustainability advocate. Yeah.
But follow up, because two of your clients are recent moms. Like, has this come up? Does the market for a fashion and beauty girl change when she becomes a mother? I mean,
Actually, 3 of the girls I managed became mums within 3 months of each other, which was incredible. I think the market does change. Like, there's obviously brands that are in that space that are more interested. Did they lose any of their clients that they had before becoming a mum? No. They've just probably evolved into maybe different segments of that business. Like, you know, there's Baby Dior now, and there's Maison Dior, the homewares. So, you know, those become extended opportunities within that client base.
And I'm just bringing it out a bit when you're talking about like the diversification. I want to come back to, what do the brands get from association with these influencers? Is there now like a pendulum shift? It used to be like, oh my God, incredible that this blogger is working with this high-end brand. Now, is there cachet for the high-end brands to be working with these influencers? I mean, at the SaksWorks launch party, we had the young emperors joined.
Amazing.
I wasn't aware of them before. I now am. They're awesome. But I saw they had a recent campaign with Gucci, and they seem to do most of their stuff themselves, but that seemed very highly produced. The same is with Christina. I can't remember her last name. She's the Poof. Why am I blanking on her last name? She's also co-founder of The Chain with Ruthie Friedlander. I'm so sorry, Christina. But everyone knows her as the Poof, and she had a similar collaboration with Chanel, which was like a fantastic ad,
yeah.
And it easily could have been a TV ad. So I was like, did she do that herself? Like what is happening now? They're getting so highly produced. Is it influencers are now the talent, just like Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston?
So it's super dependent. So anytime a brand comes to me or there's a conversation initiated about working with talent, I ask them what their objective is. If their objective is to literally just have one post on an Instagram grid and that be it, it's a hard no. So we try and create 360-degree campaigns that both benefit the talent and the brand. So what I mean by that is like those things, like those highly produced situations, those influencers are probably producing it themselves with their in-house production teams or their collaborators. They're not only posting it on their channels, they're then giving away usage or license for the brands to use it on their channels, and they're creating like a 360-degree campaign, and then the brand can put ad spend behind it to reach other audiences other than the influencers, and things like that. There is also objectives of brands literally to be like, we just want to convert to sales. So there's certain tactics that influencers will do to help them convert to sales. You know, influencers are looking at their stats and data all the time. They have the tricks that they know, well, if they want conversion to sales, I need to do X, Y, Z.
Okay, what's X, Y, Z?
I mean, there's some secrets I probably can't tell. No, but it is about like remain within your authentic bubble, for example. And then, you know, if you know that you have one of those campaigns that needs a conversion to sales, hack the algorithm before it. And when I say hack, you can't hack the algorithm, but you can absolutely ensure that your engagement is the best that it can be in the lead up to that. So things like that means utilizing, and I'm talking about Instagram specifically here, utilizing every functionality of the app. So grid, stories, reels, IGTV, and live. And making sure you're doing that at the premium sort of volume. So if you want to really get in front of or be up with the algorithm, you should be posting 1 to 3 times a day on grid. It should be 2 multi-frame stories per day on stories. You can also utilize things in stories like the question box or polls or things like that also encourage more engagement. Reels are Instagram's newest feature, so they should be the thing that we're doing the most of, which is at least 3 times a week. And then IGTV and live, I think, are like 1 to 2 times a month.
Okay, so that's definitely a full-time job.
It's a full-time job.
Instagram is very sneaky. It's like 12 apps in one.
Are there any influencers, content creators in the audience? No.
Feel free to remain anonymous.
I was just going to ask, like, do you post that often? It's hard. It's a lot of content to create.
I mean, I can say I've certainly worked with influencers, and yeah, I mean, it is absolutely, it's a challenge also to create content that is on point, that is relevant, that speaks to the moment. It's very easy to program a post, to post, when, automatically, but you really also have to be aware of what's happening in the world and be responsive, because it's a responsive app.
Absolutely.
Why don't we open up to questions if anybody has any? Otherwise, I'll just keep on asking Chloe to come watch YouTube videos with my daughter, which is, we can all do that. But do we have any questions?
So from the business
Should we do this and throw the, yeah. Okay.
From a business perspective, think about way back when celebrities were given like $10,000 to like post something that was very inauthentic and that became very transparent, and now to be authentic is paramount in matching influencers up with any opportunity.
Absolutely.
How does that in some ways change the game? Like for like a brand to come match to an influencer and an influencer match to a brand, like is there any guidance you give to your clients or in reverse that companies could take to make sure you're getting really what you wanted, which was that person
to advocate for the brand? It's definitely the no's from a talent perspective. The no's define you more than the yeses.
Could you mind saying that one more time?
The no's define you more than the yeses.
Great.
So walk away from large amounts of money if it's not right. And that is just, you have to. I also, with every talent that I work with, we basically do like a brand pillar mind map, and it's sort of our goals in each category. So say if your categories are fashion, beauty, lifestyle, fitness, health, we will have our target brands that basically become the roadmap for who we'll work with. Because it doesn't really, it's not helpful or authentic, as you said, to be jumping from this lipstick brand to this lipstick brand to another one. It's like, yeah, the audience, which is actually the most important part of any deal, is too savvy. And then from a brand perspective, I think it's about sort of mapping out your objective. Like, what are you trying to do with this influencer? Do you want them to be an ambassador in a traditional sense, in which case let's do a 12-month contract, which encompasses social media deliverables around your key launches, which encompasses press opportunities. So maybe that influencer is appearing on the cover of the magazine wearing your jewelry, or doing 10 press interviews around your new launch. It can also encompass event attendances, things like this, talking on panels. But it is really dependent on what the objective is. If you just want quick, fast brand recognition, do a wider campaign with 20 aligned influencers and have that big hit brand awareness piece, which will convert to followers and an uplift in sales. Does that help? Of course.
Ingrid, hi.
Hi, thank you so much, Chloe. So, question about what you see going forward, right? If you can think, and things move so quickly, but 2 years, 3 years, 5 years out, where is influence heading, and how do you keep your talent current and relevant?
So it kind of comes back to that not building the empire on rented land scenario, and having interests and projects outside of Instagram. For one, if we look at examples like Tash Oakley, who is an Australian influencer, she started out literally just taking really beautiful photos by the beach in bikinis. And from there, she launched a swimwear brand called Monday Swimwear, which is now valued at $63 million. So I think it's about using Instagram as a tool for your other projects and interests to promote and grow them. In terms of influence in general and where I see it going, I feel like that's asking to like look into a magic crystal ball. I truly don't know. But we are reactive to what's happening in the moment and as proactive as possible in the things that we can control, which are the things outside of social media.
Do we have one more question? Jana, hi.
Hi.
Just curious, do you see a difference between content creators and influencers?
That's actually a really good question. All of the talent I work with are both. But in saying that, I also am a partner in a creative studio. My business partner is Andrew Arthur. He's a photographer and filmmaker, and he's absolutely a content creator, but he's not an influencer. So, and I guess when we're talking about it from like an economic or like an economy perspective, you can get paid to create content that perhaps you don't have the platform to be like to promote it or the audience to promote it on. So content creators are like freelancers, right? Yeah. So yeah, there is a difference, but I think they overlap. Do you?
Yeah, I mean, so, yeah, because I'm talking specifically about like makeup creators.
Okay, yeah.
And like, you know, they create a high volume of content for the love of it, but sometimes they don't have like a huge platform.
Yeah.
But then that content becomes valuable for the brands anyway, because it's just straight on content, right?
Yeah.
So maybe they don't necessarily have a platform to influence, but that brand still might purchase their content.
For sure.
So
They could purchase the usage rights.
Yeah.
I also think if you are a makeup artist without a platform, but you are a content creator, you should be pitching to brands like, hey, I can actually make 10 Instagram reels for you this month or this quarter, and this is what the fee would be. You know, there's a way that you can pitch those content opportunities because there is value in it, as you said, and you don't necessarily need to have 1 million followers to get paid for it.
Awesome, thank you.
Of course.
And I actually had one question. We haven't really talked about TikTok. Like when a new, not new anymore, but still new in this scenario, platform comes along, what's your response? Is it to say to your clients like, you got to figure out how to do one of those Addison Rae dances or Addison Rae borrowing from people dances? We'll leave that aside. But you got to learn how to perform to this medium, or is it? Do you say like, we can't be everywhere?
It's so dependent on the goals of the personal brand and the business. Like with the 5 talent I manage, 2 are on TikTok, 3 aren't. However, brands are now asking for all talent in all contracts to have a TikTok account. Especially, not all brands, but especially if they are trying to like rebrand and skew to a younger audience or hit mass reach or things like that, then yeah, TikTok is really important.
And next question, NFTs. Is this something that people are talking about? Are you? It's out there.
It is a real thing, not with my clients or roster. However, an artist that I've consulted with, CJ Hendry, who is a hyper-realistic artist based out of Brooklyn, actually got sued, was getting sued for copyright infringement because she draws things so perfect to the photograph or whatever, and so she said they said it had to be destroyed so she wouldn't be sued. So she filmed herself destroying this drawing that would have probably sold for $200,000, and then she sold it as an NFT.
Wow.
Yeah, okay. But that's pretty much all I know about NFTs right now.
Any other questions before we wrap? I could ask more, I'm sure.
My mama jaw.
I have a question. You touched briefly on sort of like the authenticity and the boundaries or limitations and how much you affect your own brand for the sake of collaborating with others. Can you talk a little bit more about that balancing act between the goals and objectives of brands, their need for content and their association and sort of what you hope to be a mutually beneficial relationship? And then also how the influencer and her own brand balances again, it's obviously very nuanced person to person, brand to brand. I'd just love to know if you're seeing any trends. I mean, the sustainability example you gave is a good one. It sort of flies in the face of respect versus what you represent.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I've seen trends, but I think the way that we approach authenticity is if it doesn't feel right, it's not right. There are ways that you can work with brands that are trying to change their sort of brand voice and message and do the right work with sustainability and things like that. And if you can find that sort of sweet spot to be able to help them get that message out, then we will work with brands that perhaps we once wouldn't have thought were aligned. Did I go off track? Trust you to ask me a hard question I don't know the answer to.
It's a really interesting space because again, it's trying to balance the moral compass on the commercializing.
Yeah.
But also understanding that the landscape of influence is constantly evolving. So it seems like it's a bit of an ever-moving target, one which I suspect makes it quite constantly.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Do you mind just restating that for our audience at home?
Me?
Yeah, sure. I can
You
try.
go.
Yeah, okay. Ryan was just asking about sort of the authenticity piece and having a moral compass and that intersecting with opportunities and I guess social movements as well, which that feels like that's always the question. There's the rub at every time. Integrity is expensive is something that I like to say.
And it is expensive. So when you when you keep your integrity and you say no to brands that you don't share a moral code or value set with, you then are able to charge more when you do work with the brands that are aligned, because you're not sort of out there promoting everything.
I mean, I've learned a lot today. I wish we could talk more, but there seems to be some extra lunch for people to help themselves to. Yes. I want to make sure no one's hungry. Keep that blood sugar up. If you want to learn more about Chloé, you can
come say hi.
You can absolutely come say hi. And ditto SaksWorks, come say hi. We'd love to give you a tour. I was going to say you can follow her on Instagram at Chloé Brinklow, her name. And you should definitely be following SaksWorks on Instagram, SaksWorks, our name. And just throw it into Google, see what comes up.
Thanks so much for having me and twisting my arm a little to do this. It's not something that I usually do.
I knew
but
that
I appreciate it.
I love being influenced by you, and I love bringing you here to influence all of us to be better influencers or to be better at judging influencers or hiring them. Whatever it is, just to make our day, basically. You're amazing. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks, Rach.
Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for coming. And please enjoy your lunch and the beautiful scent of our hydroponic plants and our birds of paradise and sandalwood. So, white pepperwood. Thank you, Alessandra. White pepperwood, our beautiful white pepperwood scent. We'll see you next time for our SaksWorks leadership lunch. Thank you, Chloé.
Thank you.
Really does smell good in here. It's like a.
This is where we do the shimmy.
It's like that album. Are we live still?